I believe one of the core elements you really need to consider to become successful in this part in the UAE and is to really make sure you have a strong or at least a pipeline of Arabic related content or strategy related ideas that will target the Arabic audience specifically.
Even though the audience might be small in number, they have larger, pocket size.
Well, I mean, if you look at the local population in the UAE, yes, and particularly the younger generation, they're holding a lot of spending power. Exactly.
While the world's still asleep, we're already grinding. Walking foreign streets, big city lights so blinding. Learning and hustling in this relentless game. The Emerge Pods next up, we're breaking the frame. Yeah. While the world's still asleep, we're breaking the frame. We already grinding. The Emerge Pods next up, we're breaking the frame. Big city lights, so blinding. Check it out.
Hi, and welcome to the Emerge Podcast, where we break down emerging markets and give you actionable insights on how to start and grow your business in them. Today's episode was extra exciting for me because not only was my guest a recent client of EmerHub, but he is also a PR professional in the UAE with over a decade of experience. I was able to learn a lot about how larger firms in the UAE manage their advertising and what new entrants should generally be focusing on when marketing in the region. Check it out. I would like to thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Emerge podcast. And so this is a unique situation where for the first time, it is my pleasure to host a client of mine on this episode. And, we've had clients from other markets, but this is the first time we're doing a client from the UAE. So let's just jump right into it. The first thing I always like to ask my guests is, well, you started this business, I Want an Idea, right? Yeah. Where did that come from and how did you end up starting this business? What was the journey like?
Well, first of all, thank you again for having me. And, when you say it's your first client that you're getting to have on the podcast, can I just say it's a very happy client and someone that, has received great service and from EmerHub and from yourself. So, it really is a pleasure to be here and to actually share my experience. When I came up with I Want an Idea, it's mainly because I've been in this industry for a long time and I've seen how, ideas, creativity, whether that be a big idea or a small idea for a brand, an event, a concept, they all have value. And I found that over the years, unfortunately, people tend to just give those ideas away for free, pretty much, and for nothing. And, that's intellectual property. And, the creativity of someone who has been working in the industry for a long time, that's obviously been molded and sculpted and has been developed. And that deserves credit, that deserves dues as far as I'm concerned. And that's where I decided, you know what? I don't want to be giving my creative ideas because I'm a very creative person and I love coming up with cool concepts for brands, big or small. And I just felt like they have value. They have value. You put time, you put effort, you put creativity into molding and sculpting that idea to present to a brand. Yeah, that I think should be worth something, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's the foundation of it, effectively, of where it all.
But so you said that you've been in the industry for a while. Just to clarify for any listeners who might not know of you yet, so you've been in the UAE for close to 10 years now.
Yes. Well, I'm actually a Dubai baby. I grew up here. My family have been here for coming up to 40 years.
Wow.
But I was previously I did my early education here, then my higher education in the United Kingdom. And then after that, yes, coming up to 10 years. Next year, it'll be 10 years. So 2015, I moved back to the UAE, decided I wanted a complete career change, got a little bit fed up of the weather in London and said, I miss the sun. I miss those little, comforts and little luxuries that you get, when living in the UAE, as many people know. And I decided, well, let's give it a shot. This was a place that was booming, had been booming for a long time. And I'd been hearing a lot of stories from friends, who I knew back in my, through my school days, who were saying, there's opportunity here. There is opportunity. There is a chance to, completely change yourself if you want. And at that time, I was a little bit unsure about where my career was going. And when I came here, I was presented with a golden opportunity to try something new in PR and communications. I did an internship for 3 months, and very quickly I discovered this was an industry that not only did I have a natural talent for, but I actually enjoyed. And so, they say when you love what you do, every day it doesn't feel like work. And that's exactly what I feel like every day, for sure.
So what's it like working in PR in the UAE? Is it just a large focus on the event side of things? Because I see those a lot.
Look, PR and communications is a very broad field. Events is definitely one aspect towards it. But, you have PR and comms across all forms of industries. I'm very much more a consumer focused person. I'm not really a corporate. I don't like the boring stuff.
Got it.
No offense to any people who love corporate and finance. I like the fun stuff.
Got it. Yeah.
It's a very broad field, and what happens in the UAE is that it's so good at wanting to do big, exciting, creative things. That's one of the best parts about living in this country. Dubai's always wanted to do things bigger, better, bolder than anywhere else in the world. And when you have brands coming on board that that want to emulate that same vision, you can get really creative. So PR spans everything from coming up with a cool concept for how you're going to activate a brand and make it really exciting and engaging, to curating a beautiful, very highly coordinated and well executed event. You're talking about people. It's all about people as well. Leaders of industry, how are they communicating themselves? I think it's Bill Gates who said that when he started Microsoft, one of the biggest things that led to Microsoft becoming so big was because of PR. It has changed a while since.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but the power of PR is still relevant today.
That's true. But again, when I think of Dubai, of course, the first thing that anyone thinks of when they hear Dubai is the big, loud and bold expression of brands and of art and of everything, pretty much. But I'll try not to dumb down your industry too much. But when it comes to consumers, is mall activations and brand activations like a big part of it?
Look, yes, very much.
I'm trying to understand the mentality of the consumer in the UAE.
The purpose of PR, and this is a very big misconception that a lot of brands have, is that they automatically think that PR is going to translate into sales.
True.
And yes, it can do. But the purpose of PR is to generate brand awareness. It's about awareness of a product or a service, a feature, even right down to a tiny detail. It's about the message that you're trying to convey. Now, how that's activated creatively, whether that's in a mold activation, you could have, a stand there. If it's a stand, it can be something a little bit more salesy. If it's PR, it just tends to drive awareness. Now that could be through, free product gifting. That could be through an activation that's meant to just excite and invigorate the senses. Things like those little nuances that just really showcase, okay, what is the brand all about? What are we doing? Who are we? You're not necessarily trying to get a sale out of it. You're just trying to get people to understand, okay, who are you? What do we, what do we believe in? What is our brand values? What are our messages? And how do we convey them in a creative way?
I mean, that makes sense. So a bit of background here. When I was starting my career, the first internship I did was with a BTL activations agency in Karachi. Okay. And at that time, we were doing, one of our clients was Red Bull, and we did that. It was really famous at the time, the stuntmen that came to Pakistan, and we had the motorcycles and the stunts and everything. So it was a big deal at that time. And I remember my senior who was responsible for all the work, and he said that, you can look at it as a simple, activity that they're doing. Exactly. But it always starts with what the brand message is, and Red Bull has that, taking flight and it gives you wings and then high energy, and then you link that to the activity, because when you come up with the strategy first, the activities then naturally fit in.
Exactly. Completely right. And first of all, I mean, getting to work with Red Bull, I mean, that must have been super exciting.
It was
I mean,
pretty cool.
they're a brand that does it really, really well. And
Yeah.
that's exactly right, because they know who they are. They know who they are. They don't need to drive sales. Everyone
Exactly. Yeah.
right? They don't need that. But what they do is they know who they are, and they curate these experiences or these moments, right, that resonate exactly with who they are and what they're all about. Exactly. I mean, I loved the campaign that they did not too long ago, but the one where they landed on the Burj Al Arab
Yes.
on the helipad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's distinctively Red Bull,
Yeah.
Red Bull, but that's only something they can do. They've cornered that area of PR and their messaging, and they've really held on to it, and they just keep going from strength to strength, right? And again, it's about making a moment that people are going to be like, you. The best PR, in my opinion, is when you don't have any branding. You don't have any branding, and you just know instantly, okay,
this is that brand. Yeah.
This is that brand. That's the power of a really good PR.
I love what you said about, creating, these customer experiences, because at the end of the day, that's what drives, long-term brand, people's ability to remember a brand, right?
Yeah.
But so let's talk more about the UAE, because I'm sure a lot of my audiences, are starting businesses or looking to start businesses in the UAE. Yeah. So what does the consumer in the UAE want? Because oftentimes when we look at the UAE, it's all about luxury and that extravagant living.
Yeah.
But let's talk about a consumer brand. What should they be looking at in terms of their advertising? What's the focus in the UAE?
Because it's such a competitive market, right? And people think, oh, you need to have big budgets to be able to stand out, amongst the luxury brands. And yes, having a healthy budget, does help.
Does help, yeah.
It does help, totally. But you can do a lot, with a little, if you really focus on the details, okay? And again, a brand can have several key messages that they're trying to convey. Pick one that, what your consumers resonate with. And this is the other aspect, is PR is not a short-term. It's not a short-term game.
Of course.
Okay. It's a long-term game. A lot of businesses think, okay, I'll come in, I'll hire an agency, or I'll hire someone for maybe, a month or two, maybe even 3. And PR needs its time to, it needs time to grow. You need, particularly if you're a new brand, in this market, yes, if you start communicating and you communicate well, you'll have a little bit of a spike, but consistency is key. Again, Red Bull, that's a brilliant example.
Absolutely, yeah.
They're just consistent. And that's what brands over here in the UAE, I find, tend to, misalign a lot, is they think, okay, we'll have a little bit of a one-hit bang and we'll get some news, we'll get a little bit of a buzz going. But then they're not consistent with it. And they don't see the long term, they don't play the long game, because at the end of the day, if you want your brand to resonate, when you've got attention spans like that,
absolutely, yeah.
You really need to make sure that you're consistently being present in the market, whether that's through social, whether that's through brand activations and events. There's a whole multitude of experiences and content-driven ideas that you can deliver. But just pick, one or two key messages that you really want to showcase, that really show who you are as a brand and what you identify with. And, on how you want your consumers to perceive you. And then roll with that, go for a good 6 months, a year, see how the audience react to that, because that's also data for you, right?
Absolutely.
It's data. And what a lot of PR agencies, particularly consumer PR agencies in this part of the world, tend not to do is look at the data. Data is important. And when you look at some of the bigger, more global agencies, the reason why they're taking on and are successfully managing multinational brands, are because their ideas, their campaigns are very much data driven. And
True.
that's something I believe personally is important, and what a lot of smaller, more boutique agencies need to start integrating a little bit more is understand the consumer behavior, get that data, but you can't just get that data from a short campaign. You need to really look at, the trends. You need to look at your data for a good 6 to 12 months. So then you can really then refine your campaigns and make them even more impactful for what your consumers are going to want.
That makes sense. But let's talk more about, how the impact of doing something in the UAE. Now, I had a guest a while ago, and he said something great. He was like, the UAE, the UAE is the perfect, entry point for all of MENA. Because if again, it's that classic New York line, right? If you make it here, you're pretty much going to make it everywhere. And the UAE is seen as the trendsetter in this market. So does it make sense to you as well that a brand can, start in the UAE or in Dubai, and they can market themselves, and somehow that will translate across the entire region?
Of course. I think one of the key things that's important and vital is to really consider Arabic as part of your communication strategy. I'm talking from a PR and comm strategy in general. Back when Dubai was emerging onto the global scene and was becoming that destination for businesses to come in, international businesses came in, but English was the focus. And if I believe one of the core elements you really need to consider to become successful in this part in the UAE, and is to really make sure you have a strong, or at least a pipeline of Arabic related content or strategy related ideas that will target the Arabic audience specifically. Because
even though the audience might be small in number, they have larger, pocket size.
Well, I mean, if you look at the local population in the UAE, yes, and particularly the younger generation, they're holding a lot of spending power. Exactly,
yeah,
they are. But and they're appreciative of culture. One thing I do love about the UAE is when you showcase you go that little extra mile, just that small step to really want to, say, I care about your culture. Therefore, I'm adapting my plan or I'm adapting my strategy to ensure that you are included. The appreciation and value that you get from that is it's incredible. And that just sets you up for success. I've always believed in having my communications bilingual. Totally.
Yep.
Because, we're living in this part of the world, even though 80% is foreign. If you want to expand into the GCC, you've got to be able to really have a strong Arabic platform there for you to take it forward to the next level. So that would be one of the biggest things I would suggest for anyone.
And I would, think that would make sense, because I can only imagine what it must feel to be an Arab in the UAE when 80% of the population is not Arab, and they don't understand the culture, and they're bringing in their own cultures and their own languages. But then you're in the 20% that wants to see your culture represented. Yeah. And if a brand comes in and doesn't do that wouldn't speak to you, and you might not buy it. Yeah.
And again, this is what a lot of brands are now picking up on. They've, it's definitely been improving over the past, I'd say, couple of years. But if you really want to make that impact, 20%, it's a small number. But compared to the other 80% who are maybe English speaking, etc. But if it's a detail, it's a small detail that if you really pay attention to it, the benefits that you get from it, again, the long-term strategy here. You've always got to think ahead and always think long-term. And you'll end up with the big players. You'll end up becoming one of the big players. Yeah. If you're thinking like a small company, you're only thinking, all right, I'm just going to cater to my consumer. They're only English speaking. I'm sure they're going to have Arabic speaking consumers as well. Cater to them. And it's not something that requires a lot of effort. It's a detail that you can be easily integrated. We are in an Arabic speaking country. trust me, it will do you wonders. It will do you wonders.
Makes sense. So another misconception, and which might be based out in fact, is that people see the UAE and assume, rightfully so, that it is a very expensive market to operate in. I wouldn't say it's if you compare it to the UK or perhaps other affluent nations, you might not find that very disturbing. But a lot of the businesses in this country are from other nations that such as Southeast Asia or whether Central Asia or something, and for them this country might be very expensive to operate in as compared to their home countries.
Yeah.
Does that cost also translate into marketing?
Yes, it does. One of the if a business is hard hit, if there are challenges, unfortunately, one of the first services to go is usually
marketing.
PR.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's always one of the first to go. But the beauty about this place, this part of the world, is that we're so connected with everywhere else, right?
Yeah.
We're so connected with Southeast Asia. We're so connected with Europe and the West that I believe that there's opportunity for collaboration. And with how digital has improved connectivity between us, yes, it does look expensive, and the cost of living here, it's up there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But you can make it work, and the services that you're providing, if you're smart about it, if you're smart about what you're trying to offer, you can look at at making partners internationally to actually provide those services at a more cost-effective
yeah,
price.
absolutely.
And what happens is, it's also about education. It's also about awareness. The amount of meetings I've had with potential partners internationally, and the first assumption that they're like, "Oh, you live in Dubai, you must be rich." I'm like,
yeah.
I live in Dubai. So, sorry, I'm not rich, unfortunately. I hope to get there one day.
Absolutely.
But let's work together. Let's see how we can make that happen. Let's see how we can do that. I'll make you rich. You make me rich. That's
absolutely
quick pro quo, right? But that's where the power of collaboration comes into play here, because you educate them about this market, and they educate you about their market. There needs to be that familiarity. If you don't understand how this market works, and it is a unique market, it is a very unique market, and you need to be able to understand the nuances. Once you've got that under your belt, and you can create, those long-standing partnerships, people will then understand, okay, the services they're interchangeable. It's a lot easier. It just becomes a better working environment for everyone, right?
True.
And we won't end up, if you start to show that you're invaluable because of your connections, then hopefully PR and marketing won't be the first.
Absolutely. We can only hope, yeah. But it's interesting. The episode I've done just right before yours, we were talking to a software house that is based out of the UAE. And they hire their developers from all over the world. So they've got developers in Pakistan, they've got developers in Europe, and they say that because of the cost of hiring people in the UAE, it might be better to have your business here, because that gives you a lot of advantages. You can meet people, you can call this your headquarters, and be based out of the UAE, which is of course a great thing in its own. But you can then outsource the work to other countries where the cost of hiring people is cheaper. I can see that since you're in this industry as well, I'm sure you also require designers and content writers and whatnot. So do you find that outsourcing that outside the UAE gets you good results, or would you still prefer hiring from within UAE?
It very much depends on the service, and it depends on the quality. I'm all about quality. If I am getting the same level of, standard of work that I might get if I was hiring someone here internationally, by all means, I will go, and I'm getting it at a better rate, I will go international. If I feel the quality is not up to par, then no. Yes, there are certain, I would say, services or verticals within PR and comms that do require you to actually have local experience or reside
True.
in the UAE.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's part of the industry that we work in. You do need to have that local experience to really showcase this market, the consumer. But I wouldn't say no to to outsourcing certain services. Again, if I feel that I'm going to get the same quality of work as if I was getting someone from here. Of course, I would always prefer to get someone and hire someone to
Locally,
be part of my team. But if it's if it's a small service or it's a small project that doesn't really require a full-time employee to be part of the company, then yeah, I will happily look at other places. And Southeast Asia in particular, it's growing rapidly, and there's a lot of talent. There is a lot of talent out there, and I just feel it's a shame because of, unfortunately, and this is, I would have to say, one of the downsides, unfortunately, of being living within the UAE is there are a lot of hurdles and restrictions and hoops that you have to go through just to be able to reside here.
That's true.
That's a challenge, and I feel that's such a limit for some great talents that are around the world. And we if we can't actually bring them here, well, let's find a way to work together, because I don't believe you should be contained within your own bubble. There is that worry.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And that is a problem. Dubai is a bubble. It is a bubble. So I continuously try to expand that and try to reach out to other people. I've got contacts, partners in Brazil. I've got partners in Southeast Asia, in Europe. So I'm always trying to reach out to them because I want to find the best person for the job. And sometimes that best person doesn't necessarily need to reside here.
That's true, but at the same time, you have a huge workforce in the UAE as well, but then again, it might come down to the cost of hiring a person in the UAE, because not only do you need to hire them, you need to give them a visa as well, which is of course a very costly addition to your company. But yeah, I do like how Dubai offers you that multicultural, multinational experience, right? So you can find pretty much anything and everything in the UAE, because it's so centrally located across all of these countries that you can go out in the street, and on one side you could meet someone from Sweden, and on the other you've got someone from India. So it's all across the spectrum. So in terms of clientele now, how have you found your clientele so far? I mean, what's your outreach mechanism for gathering new leads or new clients?
It's funny, again, talking about, the UAE and Dubai is, in terms of developing a business and growing a business. It is, very much one of those cities that where it is who you know.
That's true.
Having connections and having those contacts does, give you that foot in the door to potentially have, secure new clients or new business. Coming in here with no knowledge or no contacts or no understanding of how this market works is a risk, is very risky. Ooh. And I, hats off, and I admire anyone who's just, decided, okay, yep, Dubai's it's a growing, booming market. Let's just go and see, how we can make money. If you don't have a job or you don't have anything already coordinated and prepared for you here, it's going to be a struggle. It is going to be a struggle. So having those connections and having some establishment already is going to be a key factor with how you start to, acquire new business. I've been in this industry for 9 years. I have, a lot of contacts, and I know, previous clients that I've worked with. So, and people know me as a PR professional. So a little bit, has got to be on, based on reputation. It's got to be based on, how long have you been in the market? One of the things that whenever I look at hiring people, and, I get a lot of emails and CVs come through from markets like India, like Pakistan, saying, I'd love to come over and work in the UAE. I'd love to work for you. And the first question I ask them is, do you have any local experience?
That's true. Yeah.
It's the first thing. And and they've got a brilliant roster of amazing clients that they've worked with, but that's in your market. Now,
Yeah.
if you can come here, save up enough for 3 to 6 months, and okay, I know it's not easy, but if you can do that, get that experience and that, that knowledge under your belt, that gets your foot in the door. You make your contacts, you start meeting, you network, you get out there and meet people. It's a very competitive market.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you've got to meet people. You've got to be out there asking, what do you need? What do you want? And they'll only really consider you if they know, hey, this guy knows his stuff. He knows this place.
Yeah.
He knows this market. He knows the brands. He knows how people operate. That's one of the core aspects.
And I like what you said about communicating with people, because that's the general trend I've seen in the market. And the great thing is that the UAE allows you to do that. It allows you to connect with others. And I remember I was talking to someone and they said that if I was back in the UK and I sent someone a message on LinkedIn, there's a high probability they would not respond. Yeah. But you do that in the UAE and there's a much higher probability of them responding, because everyone knows the power of connecting with people.
Yes.
So even though it might be difficult for someone who's new in the market, the UAE still provides you plenty of opportunity to talk to people.
Exactly.
And communicate, and everyone's open to go for a karak chai at any time, right? So you get that opportunity in the UAE.
You do. And again, I'm always open to helping people, helping people and giving them that knowledge or an experience. I'm actually doing, I'm mentoring someone from the Czech Republic right now.
Wow.
Who's very keen to come over and, start a PR career here in the UAE. And so, wherever I can, I'll and this actually came as a connection through social media.
Okay.
This was a connection through social media. I have no idea who this person was previously, and just because of that connection, and again, I could see how he's got that previous experience in the industry. He's very keen to move over. Obviously, the circumstances weren't in his favor to be able to just move. But I said, look, let me do whatever I can to help give you that platform so that when you do come over, you've got, the foundation all laid there for you. And that's exactly as you said, it's all through the power of connection. It is. And yes, the UAE is definitely a lot more conducive to that. Again, LinkedIn is, I'm only really starting to just get my LinkedIn game on a little bit more.
Yeah.
I used to be an Instagram person. Now I'm like, okay, I spend more time on LinkedIn than I do on Instagram.
Yeah. Now, I was just about to bring it to that side. What about in terms of clientele?
Yeah.
I'm sure that, finding people to work and for the services is also amazing on LinkedIn. But how often do you find clients through communication and through referrals and all that?
Predominantly through referrals. At least in my industry, it is predominantly through referrals. Through LinkedIn, I would say it's more it's more nuanced, because of I would say if it's a much bigger brand, that has some establishment already in the UAE, then they're more likely, I would say, to reach out via LinkedIn, etc.
Right.
If you're a smaller startup brand, let's say you're a small consumer brand like a jewelry brand or a mom and pop bakery, etc. You're going to use different platforms to your advantage to try and see, okay, where am I going? Who do I need to work with to actually get the best results? And usually, smaller brands will tend to think more social, more digitally led. So they'll likely reach out more on platforms like Instagram. The amount of I tend to get a lot of requests from smaller brands who may not have big budgets and say reaching out to me via Instagram saying, hey, I saw that you do PR and comms. Can we have a chat? I've got a small brand. I'd love to look at how we can work together. So it depends on the size of the business. If you've got the I would say the workforce and the manpower there, you're tending to go to more established, more suitable platforms like LinkedIn. But if you're just on your own and you're running this, you may be doing LinkedIn, you may be doing more Instagram. Again, it depends on your industry and what you're focusing on.
Interesting. But again, let's going back to the smaller business side of things. So, I'm sure there are a lot of SMEs here who are looking for that creative spark from a PR agencies. But again, as you mentioned, might not have the biggest budget.
Yeah.
So let's plug in your business here a little bit as well. So so I'm sure that you're building your niche as an agency for the SME.
Yeah.
Of course, having bigger clients would be awesome, but you're trying to make great ideas more accessible, approachable for smaller companies.
Exactly.
Do you bill your time, or how does that work? Because I can think of a consultant billing their time.
So the current model in the market right now it's quite restrictive, unfortunately.
Okay.
Now, taking into consideration what I've mentioned before, PR is a long game, right? But there are certain services, and if you're actually looking at PR and comms as a service in itself, yes, then you need to be looking 6 months minimum, to be working with someone. But ideas, creativity, they can be done for moments, they can be done for simple projects, etc. And unfortunately, the current model in the market doesn't allow that. You're signing on with an agency, you're paying, upwards of 9,000-10,000 dirhams a month, and
as a monthly retainer,
as a monthly retainer, you're locked in for like 6 months. And if you're a small up-and-coming brand or an SME, you don't necessarily have those budgets, right?
So then the $1 million question here is, how do you sell an idea?
Well, this is the thing. Yes, time is very much, factored into this, into how we do things. But you're also buying the idea in itself. We're not giving half-baked ideas. Our ideas come with, I mentioned that how data is vitally important. Trends, insights. We're looking at that that potential client's industry and understanding what's happening specifically, not just from a local level, but also from a global perspective. What's happening in that industry, and what's the current trend, and what's likely going to be a future trend. And all of that research, that takes time, as you know, right? It does take time. It does take effort and creativity to produce. So what an SME coming to us would feel like is, okay, I'm getting value for my money because I'm actually buying that person's time to do all the work and understanding of what's happening in this market, what's happening in my industry, and to come up with something that's going to work, that's going to resonate with the consumers. The problem is that ideas are subjective.
I was just going to say, what if someone doesn't like that idea? Yeah.
So this is the thing. Ideas are subjective, of course. And, this is a natural, a natural response. What if I don't like the idea? That's not to say that, hey, yeah, you don't like the idea, we're not going to...
Too bad, yeah, we're done.
We're done. No. We are in the service industry, after all, right? If you don't like the idea, let's communicate, let's talk, let's understand why you don't like the idea, and let's revisit. It's not like we're just going to give you that idea and then it's done. We want you guys to be happy. We want you guys to be as excited about the idea as we would be when we are producing it. So even if that idea needs refinement or we need to come up with something else, we will do that. We'll do that until, that client is happy with that idea. Now, time is money and we value our time. If a client's asking for idea after idea
over and over again,
then we kind of think, okay, there's something a little bit wrong here. But, we value our client relationships so much. So we will go that extra mile. We'll go an extra 2-3 miles if we need to. Yeah. It's all right. We will do. But then you're happy.
Again, it's such a cool concept because that pretty much makes you a purely strategy agency, right?
Yeah.
But then I would wonder, how detailed are these ideas? Do you outline the executions of them as well?
So we'll outline everything. We'll literally outline everything from A to Y. Z, we leave for you guys to do. And that's why...
I like that.
That's basically it. We'll do everything from A to Y, and Z we leave. And that's why we are more affordable. Because...
That makes sense, yeah.
That's why we're more affordable. Because... Again, you may not have the time to be able to execute an idea yourself, but then if you don't have the time and you don't have the funds, then
what are you doing?
Then what are you doing? then there's a little bit here. Then you need to actually look. If you want someone to do everything from A to Z, then you need to go look at an agency that can do everything from A to Z. But again, if you're small and you've got time and you're nurturing your brand from the start, you want to be involved, but maybe you're not a creative person. Maybe you're you're a financial person, or you're much more of an operations person. Okay, utilize your skills, leave the creativity to us. We will come up with the creativity.
Absolutely.
We'll come up with the full plan, because I'll be very honest, the execution part of it is actually really small. It's a
Yeah.
really small aspect to it, and nearly anyone can do it. If you've got you know what? This is an actually interesting analogy that I like to kind of explain. When you go to a restaurant and you sit down, you order the menu, you look at the menu, you order a dish. Okay, the chefs behind the scenes, they're taking time to really curate and cook that dish. You're cooking an idea effectively, right? You're
True.
presenting that idea to your guest. So literally the meal is right there in front of you. You're having that meal. If you finish that meal, you can't suddenly then just say, oh, I didn't like the meal.
Yeah.
You finished it, right? You've consumed it. Now, if it's all about how you prepare that dish, it's all about how you prepare it. If you've really gone into detail about the ingredients, every little nuance, every small element that's there, and you put that into your meal, of course, you can't really say, hey, I've not worked on this, I've not done something good, I've done something absolutely beautiful. It's all a matter of taste, right? It's all a matter of taste. If you try it, you don't like it, okay, we'll take it back. We'll try something else. But it's, and this is again what I feel is what happens with a lot of brands or companies. They take ideas and they go to execute, somewhere cheaper. And
that happens. That does happen.
And that happens, and it happens a lot. And that's what frustrated me. And again, goes back to the reason why I started iwantanidea.com is because I want our time to be valued. We're coming up with those ideas for you. So give us, pay us for that time. And it's not like we're going to just give you something, that's half baked. No, yeah. It has validity. It has insight. It's data driven, and, it's creative. It's creative. Some brands need to just be a little bit more, I think a little bit more bolder. And actually feel like, okay, let's take a risk here. Dubai used to be like that. Used to be like that. If you look at about 8-9 years ago, Dubai used to love, doing something. You could go to any part of Dubai and you'd see some big brand activation happening. It's not happening so much these days. And that's because there's a little bit more, people are becoming a little bit more careful. I don't know if that's because of, woke culture, or people are feeling a little bit like, okay,
makes sense.
How far do we want to go with things? Is it too much? There's a lot more conversation happening right now. And I want to bring that back. I want to make people feel like, okay, you know what? Let's be bold, because you're in a very competitive landscape here. And if you want to stand out, you've got to go big. You've got to go bold and take a risk. It might not work. It might not work. I always think, look, take a risk. If it doesn't work, that's fine. If it does work, the benefits could be endless. I always make sure that, any idea that we do is calculated. I want to make sure, okay, it's not going to have a backlash. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's one thing. But if it has a backlash, that's another. And that's one thing we always try to avoid with our idea.
But then again, the UAE market is very, people in the UAE are very progressive, and I would think that there wouldn't be that much of a cultural barrier. But do you think that exists though?
It's not necessarily. There is a little. I mean, if you compare it, some campaigns to in like the UK or the West, for example, they're a lot more risky. They're a lot more risky.
Okay, yeah.
And and I think one of the biggest ways to actually get a message across is through humor.
True.
I think if you're funny and if a brand can laugh at themselves or can be a little bit tongue in cheek, it can be a little bit more relatable, to a consumer. And I feel like brands do that really well in the in the West and Europe, etc. But over here, humor can be taken one way or another,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's it. That's where people have to be a little bit more careful, if you want something big and shiny and flashy, etc., that's easily
That's not a problem. Yeah.
yeah, a stunt or something like that is easy to do. But you've got to remember that these have to go on social media. There's so many different channels right now that you're wanting to communicate on. So you're not just thinking about, okay, how is this going to look in front of me, but how is it going to look on my screen?
Yeah.
So there's so many different aspects that you have to consider right now, and that's where I want to kind of push the envelope a little bit and just let brands say, let's give it a try. Let's give it a try. As long as you're not insulting anyone or you're not,
of course, as long as there's no backlash. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's the key aspect to it. But go for it. Go for it. And with a small brand, if you're in a crowded marketplace, do what you can to stand out. Do what you can.
Absolutely. And the market is definitely crowded, and I can see the need for good ideas in this market. And I do get that, a lot of smaller players don't really focus on that stuff. And that's not just restricted to the UAE, pretty much everywhere in the world. Smaller businesses don't feel the need to have that kind of a strong brand message.
Yeah.
But, it's interesting to see that, you're trying to bring that thought process into the smaller business market as well. And I think that's much needed.
It's much because it's, again, you're not needing to take on some, if you need an idea for a project, you can literally just come to us and we'll curate something specifically for what you need. And it'll be cost effective because you tell us what your budget is. What is your budget? Okay. We'll give you an idea that works for that budget. That's the important aspect. I think a lot of agencies don't take these, certain considerations into account when they're coming up with ideas for brands, and they miss the mark sometimes. So
that makes sense.
What I love to do is I love to get under the skin of a brand. I really love to understand what are they trying to do. Who are you? Who are you? What are you all about? I love to hear founders' stories. I want to know, okay, why did you start this company? What was the purpose? Because there's always a relatable reason.
Absolutely.
There's always a relatable reason. Find that relatable reason, and that's that's your starting point, right? Curate your message, curate your brand, and curate your story. We're storytellers. We're storytellers.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful message, and I would just in that note, I'll move us towards a conclusion as well. So starting a business in the UAE. So I'll just bring it back to my playing field now.
Yeah.
What was that experience like? Because again, you've been in the UAE, you already knew the market.
Yeah.
And even then, you felt the need to bring on a partner who can help you do that. So what was your thought process there?
Look, it's the UAE. It's in terms of regulations, in terms of opportunity. There is a whole wealth of it, but at the same time, it comes with a lot of red tape. It comes with a lot of legal or governmental experience or knowledge to really make sure that you're set up for success. Okay. I've seen a lot of companies, not necessarily fall at the first hurdle, but are having to struggle continuously with ensuring that basic fundamentals of their business structure are in place.
True.
And I didn't want that. I want to do the fun part. I want to do all the stuff that I know is enjoyable. Yeah. That's what I know is at the end of the day, it's going to make me this. It's going to make me money. So, but I was like, look, there are certain things I will invest in, and I wanted to invest in a partner that I knew could help me handle all the business setup side of things, so that I didn't have to deal with that headache.
Yeah. Well, I did, because we ran into a couple of problems as well. So I went through that headache for you.
I know, and I am eternally grateful. And as I said,
it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure.
You guys showcased. You did it brilliantly. And that's the difference as well with, there are a wealth of companies out there that, support with setting up, businesses, whether you're going for a free zone or a mainland license. I didn't even know the difference between the two. And what I wanted was someone who could actually educate me a little bit. And that was why I came to you guys, was because you provided that knowledge to me and you explained it clearly. Not in a way that I came away from a call feeling more confused than when I started.
Yeah. That tends to happen. Yeah.
I actually understood, okay, so this is what it all means. And having that partner in place from the very beginning means that you're also educating yourself. You're understanding what's required, how it all works from a process perspective. And you then start to realize, well, if I had to do all this on my own,
it would be a lot. Yeah,
it would be a lot. And, you may have, a finite timeline that you're working towards. And we know that, unfortunately, when you're dealing with, certain institutions, that things could take double, triple the amount of time.
That's true. It can happen. Yeah.
And if you're doing that on your own, it's easy to get frustrated. You've got a lot of other things to be dealing with. And, I'd rather have someone who can actually, because again, having contacts, we know that's essential, right?
Absolutely.
Having contacts who can actually get things moving for you, make that process a lot more streamlined. That's part of that just makes the whole experience a lot more palatable. So, and these were the things that I was looking for when I wanted a setup partner. And MRHub, for me, you've got that experience already in emerging markets. You work with startups, which is what I wanted. And I like the fact that you have, you're not just based out of the UAE. Yes, you have that international outreach, which shows to me there's versatility there.
Absolutely.
There's versatility. You can adapt to a different market like that. And that was like, okay, if they can understand those markets, then this is another market. I mean, I'm again, hats off to anyone who can actually understand how these how these processes and procedures work. But yeah, these were core elements that made me feel more confident in choosing MRHub as a partner. And I made the right decision because not only was it, yes, I know every process has its ups and downs, but communication is vital for me. And there was always clear communication. There was honesty and transparency, which again, from the get-go, I kept being, from other companies hearing about hidden fees or surprise charges that come up. It
happens. It happens more often than you might think. A lot of companies do that. Yeah.
And that's not, that again, that honesty and transparency from the get-go, these are tick, 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 boxes that are ticking for me that I'm like, yes, okay, this is the partner I want to work with. And I highly recommend that, do your research. I researched, I think about 10 different companies,
really? Wow.
10 different companies that I wanted to that I potentially wanted to look at exploring to partner with. And, some of them were directly going to the free zones. Some of them were, actual companies that dealt with setup. And I narrowed it down. I shortlisted. And I'm sure, as you understand, so connection is important, right?
Absolutely. And we had that from the first meeting. I remember that.
From that first meeting. And that was, again, you went that extra mile and you have that showcase that extra connection there. It makes all the difference. It does.
It's the first thing, when I started operating in this market was, you said it rightfully, it's the understanding of what an entrepreneur goes through.
Yeah.
So I remember 10 years ago when I was setting up a company in the UAE as well, I went to a couple of these companies and the first thing they asked me was, do you want to set up in the free zone or in the mainland? I'm like, dude, I don't know what that means. Why are you asking me? I would expect you to answer that. And when I did, they would always take me to free zone. And that would make no sense because, and then after, I think this is something that we discussed initially as well, that it took me a while to figure out that why everyone takes you to a free zone because the commissions are better. And I remember I disclosed that to you, that anyone who's taking you to a free zone might not be doing that out of the best interest of you. But then in your case, when we analyzed your case together, we explored both of those things and we found that free zone would be better.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of information going about in the UAE about company setup. There are a lot of rumors that you keep hearing, and it's often very difficult for startup entrepreneurs to navigate all that noise.
And it changes. It changes rapidly.
Yeah.
It changes, frequently. And again, this is a testament, I think, to, and something I'm sure that you've already, kept into consideration for future clients is keeping your clients updated on,
Absolutely.
This is changing. I mean, we've already been discussing for next year, which is great,
Yeah.
and I love this because as I said, I want a long-term partner here. I'm not looking for just, great, you've set me up, move on.
Yeah, and we're gone.
No, that's not it. Long-term game here, long-term game.
Absolutely.
So it's it's about next, understanding. Okay, things might change. What's happening now might change in a year, right? This is a very rapidly evolving market in many aspects. So keeping abreast of what's going on, and then even though there's no contract effectively between us to
That's
continue,
true.
it's keeping that relationship, still nurturing it in some way to say, hey, we're going to be talking next year anyway. These are just things that I want you to be aware of so that we can forward plan. And
yeah, because if we don't do that, then eventually we're going to be in trouble, because then you will face some challenges and you'll say, oh, I worked with these guys and they did not inform me of this. So we're going to be in trouble anyway. Yeah.
But that's the point, right? It's making sure that we keep nurturing that relationship
Absolutely.
however we need to, but in a way that it's mutually beneficial for both of us, right?
Absolutely.
That was, again, one of the key factors that made me realize, okay, this is why I want to work with MRHub. You guys weren't looking at it from a profit perspective. You were looking at it because, we talked about additional services. We talked about how we want to, explore this relationship moving further. And that, for me, when someone thinks, okay, look, there's more to it than just we're setting this company up, that showcases to me, okay, yeah, they believe in what we're doing here. We believe in taking, that we're going to grow. And the best support I can feel is like, okay, this is someone who actually believes in that I'm going to be here. I'm going to be here next year, and then I'm going to be doing better next year.
No, that's why you're on the podcast, because, the moment I heard of what you're trying to do here, I can tell that it's a very interesting proposition, what you're trying to do. And I can feel by talking to you and, working with you over the last couple of months that, you definitely bring something new to the table. So, I can only have the biggest hopes for I Want an Idea. And just to plug you in a final time,
Yep.
I'm sure after watching this episode, a lot of our audiences will want an idea.
Yes.
So how does someone get an idea from you? How do they get in touch with you?
Best way is just go through our website, iwantanidea.com. Very simple. And just drop us a message through our direct messaging service that's available on the site, or you can email help@iwantanidea.com.
That's cool. That's kind of cool.
Just that. Help. I want an idea.
I want an idea.
And we'll get back to you. And as I said, everything is bespoke. Everything's curated. We're not just going to treat you like another number. We treat you, whoever comes to us it doesn't matter whether you're an international brand or you're a small mom and pop shop. We will treat you with the utmost sincerity and care as I would with any client that I've worked with in the past.
And that's, I believe, what a small business would want to be treated as.
Exactly.
But again, Omar, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast. This was a very interesting episode, especially in understanding what's happening in the UAE market and what kind of marketing strategies businesses should have. And again, it was an immense pleasure serving you as your partner as well. And I just look forward to the growth that I Want an Idea will have, and I look forward to continuing working with you. Thank you so much, Omar.
Thank you, Sohaib. It's an absolute pleasure to have been here today, really. And thank you again also for all the hard work you guys have done. Onwards and upwards.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you, sir. Take care.
Thank you.
While the world's still asleep, we're already grinding. Walking foreign streets, big city lights so blinding. Learning and hustling in this relentless game. The Emerge Pods next up, we're breaking the frame. Yeah. While the world's still asleep, we're breaking the frame. We already grinding. The Emerge Pods next up, we're breaking